101 Part-Time Jobs just reached over 400 episodes, and we just won 2 Independent Podcast Awards, one for Best Music Podcast and the other for Best Jingle, which we're very pleased with. We're an independent music podcast, and we've been able to do so by advertising, working with brands and companies who we like and we believe in. We want to keep this show free and accessible to everyone. So for the next few minutes, you're going to be hearing some sponsored messages, and then we'll be on with the episode. Thanks for your support. Hey, do you play in bands? I did for the longest time, and I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties, and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
The holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's the podcast where we hear from musicians and artists about how they get by in the streaming era. On the weekend, I went to Live at Leeds Festival, which is a great sort of up-and-comers festival, really. You got the headliners like Everything, and Alfie Templeman, and you got a load of up-and-coming, unsigned, independent musicians. It's a great place to find out about your new favourite band. So I'd look at the lineup at Live at Leeds. And in the morning, having our coffees, I spoke with Lington, who's a Leeds musician, Emily Pilbeam, who's on Six Music, Simon Rix, bassist of Kaiser Chiefs, and GK, singer in Venus Girls. All great artists. Emily's great radio presenter, playing some brilliant stuff on her Six Music mixtape. So here's our chat from the morning. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you subscribe to this show. We put out 2 episodes every week with interesting and exciting artists. Thanks to Live at Leeds for having us. And here is my chat with Lington, Simon Rix, GK from Venus Girls, and Emily Pilbeam. 101 Part-Time Jobs.
Like, what's interesting, like when I got older, I realised that everything I was doing when I was younger was to do the band stuff, and I didn't realise it was just what I was doing naturally. So, like, examples of stuff like, I learned to drive, and as soon as I could drive, I used to get in my car, my mum's car, drive, pick my mate up, and we used to get the Duchess, which was a venue in Leeds, and whoever was on, like, local bands, or if it was touring bands, whatever, we'd just drive and go there, like, 5 times a week just to go there. And, like, I just thought that was normal because we wanted to go see as much live music as possible. But obviously no one else was doing it.
Yeah.
or
And you look back and you think, how much belief in yourself does one teenager have?
I don't know if I think, we wanted to be kind of connected to the scene, I guess. So I guess that's what we were doing it for. But it was just exciting. We were doing it for ourselves. Like, we were just doing it because we were excited about, like, we could drive. I could drive, which was ace. And then secondly, could go see as much live music and no one could kind of stop me. I didn't have to ask for lifts anymore or whatever. So that was really good. And then, with jobs and stuff, like how I had jobs and like loads of rubbish jobs, just so they would fit in with, like, I could like do flexi time so I could save up my time and then have a day off to go do a gig or whatever, just all those things. You look back and you're like, because I never really thought I was going to be a musician. I just thought it was something I did.
Right.
And I didn't have anything else I was going to do. But I just thought that would work itself out. And then, looking back, I was like, oh, yeah, I was just trying to be a musician. I didn't really, like, focus on it.
That humility's really interesting, I think. I mean, it's fascinating that you spend hours and hours and hours doing this one thing and you don't really know exactly what the end goal is or what you're doing it for or the likelihood of it happening. Mm-hmm. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it's stupid.
But fun.
Well, I always think, so we were in a band for a long time, so we... bands at university, and then we were in a band that got signed and then got dropped. And then there was a gap where no one would sign us. So I was like 27 by the time Kaiser's, no one really realises that, but like 27, 28. White was 30. Like, we were old by the time we got signed. Yeah, we were lying a lot. Like, we said we were 22 when we were in Parva, and then we just never changed the bio. Anyway, but... I was going to say, so it took us a long time, and I look back, and I'm like, it was a bit strange, really. Like, I think everybody else was getting jobs and buying houses and having kids. And we were like, this music thing, it's going to work. We know it's going to work. Do you know what I mean? It was 5. It's going to work.
And Emily, working in radio, you're on kind of the other side, but, I don't think it's too far out to say that, your voice and your personality is the art of what you do, and that's what you practice, and that's what you put your love towards. How did you get into radio? You started at hospital radio, right?
Yeah, that's very kind of you to say it like that. I just kind of see it as I just chat shit. So you putting it like that is really nice. I started at hospital radio back in Norfolk, where I'm from, when I was like 15. I think I kind of wanted to do radio a couple of years before that, but didn't really understand how to do it. And I think I read a book about radio, and then I think I was listening to Greg James, and he made a comment about how he did hospital radio or community radio or something when he was younger. And I just like Googled a local one. And my parents used to take me every Sunday. My mum actually was a nurse, so she started to then work at that hospital because she needed extra money and didn't want to drive all the way to Kings Lynn.
You hooked her up with a job?
Not technically me. I think that was maybe her qualification. But yeah, so she used to drop me off, do a shift, and then take me home. Yeah. So I did that for a few years, and then I moved to Leeds when I was 18 because I used to really love a band from Leeds called Pulled Apart by Horses. Yeah. And I remember I used to watch some of the interviews that they would do, and they would always kind of shout out about the Leeds music scene and loads of Leeds bands. And I was like, that looks cool. There's not really any of that where I live. Very much kind of a remote part of Norfolk, not much going on. So yeah, I moved. I've looked back on that kind of time in my life a lot recently, and I think I had a lot more confidence back then than I do now.
Isn't that funny after that experience? And
I think when you're 18, like, you just don't, there's no consequences really, is there? There's just kind of like you just kind of think, fuck it, I don't have to worry about paying rent yet. So yeah, I'll move to Leeds. I moved, and then I just worked at the train station Wetherspoons for 3 months, which was an interesting experience.
Amazing.
And then I worked at a different venue and then kind of got into working with the BBC and stuff.
And the music venue, I often think that just kind of being around it, doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter if you're behind the bar or you're stage manager or just on the door or even handing out flyers outside. If you're just around it, then you kind of end up sort of circling closer and closer.
Yeah.
And also learning what you want to do. Because I guess that's a huge thing, is that you know you might want to be involved in music, but you don't know exactly what it is. And so you need to fuck around and find out.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of that actually, as well as when I was doing like the hospital radio stuff when I was younger. I would write for various kind of music websites for free.
Yeah. Still happening.
Yeah, but I was able to do that kind of like because I was at home and I didn't need to worry about that. And then kind of as soon as I moved to Leeds and I realised you had to pay for things, I stopped doing that. I really value kind of having those opportunities when I was younger and being able to write music reviews, like go to gigs for free, because it was kind of like my first into what the music industry was. And I think it was completely like invaluable to me. But I was really fortunate that I knew when I was younger what I wanted to do. And I knew that when I was living at home with my parents or with my mum and not having to worry, like I did have I was a lifeguard for a bit. Yeah.
There's a lot of training for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Responsibility as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird that, isn't it?
Did you ever save anyone's life?
No.
Gotta be careful with what questions I ask you.
Yeah. No, a lot of people pretended to drown, like a lot of boys. And I just would stare at them.
They're like, save me.
Yeah. And I just would blow my whistle and stare.
Yeah. Sort yourself out.
Yeah.
Same for people from drowning. It's a bit like radio, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so I do think like doing those things for free and not really having like, you get given those opportunities because there's no financial stress for the website, and they can just be like, they can just give you those opportunities, and you can hopefully, if you work for someone that's good enough, they'll, you know, teach you the right things and you will learn stuff from it. But then also because there's no kind of financial responsibility from the editor side of things, then you don't kind of check everything properly. And then like that kind of breeds bad journalism, I guess.
A couple of typos.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, I think it was really invaluable. And like I said, I was really fortunate that I was back home at that point. But yeah, it's not really sustainable for anyone, is it?
So what do you do when you get to that point? And I guess this is a question for all of you. So you get to that point where you've done some work, you've played a gig, you've written for a magazine, you haven't quite, you know, you're not paying your rent with it, definitely not yet. So you get to this kind of point where it could be an impasse, where it's like, okay, this is always going to remain a hobby or something that I would like to do and maybe wish you did, you know, for the rest of your life. Or it's like, okay, how do I really pull up my bootstraps and make this work? Do you have any memories, Hang, of like, okay, I'm going to play music, I'm going to prioritize this over everything else?
It was always like kind of like a side burner. The first job I had when I moved to Berlin was in a call center, and I started to like take my amp to work so that I could busk on my lunch break. And I was just like kind of just getting coins, trying to get the music out to the people, yeah? So I feel like it's always been a kind of like side burner. And you mentioning the kind of like jobs that you do where you don't get paid, and I done plenty of that as well. And it was kind of like, but weirdly, me doing those jobs, or at least having the kind of financial freedom to explore them, those are the creative connections and networking that then allowed me to move away from the work, you know? So like me doing these kind of like, I'm not saying work for free, but by doing it and kind of not being afraid to explore these ideas that maybe were a bit intimidating or outside of my skill set, or, you know, it was someone invited me to do some work in a theater, like for a dance show. And then that someone in that show was working with a huge choreographer and was like, someone makes great music, you should hire him. And then that was my turning point of like, okay, I'm not going to work in this burger place anymore. It's like I went to a festival and had a conversation with my friend, and we were playing the festival. It was the first festival that I'd ever done. It was like first field festival, and we just had a chat, and the person was like, look, when are you going to do it? Like, they were like, you've got a lot going on for you right now. Like, when are you going to do it? And it was just a case of ripping the plaster off and just being like, okay, now let me at least try. I've got to like give myself the freedom to actually try and not, be distracted.
To me, there's a massive part of that, which is when you're doing things for free, hopefully you can be a bit more you. I know that's such like parental advice, isn't it? Just be yourself, like whatever. That's really hard to actually do. But if you can just let your personality come out naturally, you could naturally gravitate towards the people that you like and like you. And I wonder at that theatre, you know, because you're working for free, there wasn't that pressure to try and be someone else. Do you think that was part of it, that you could let your personality come out? And
I think it's taken me a long time to find the confidence in expressing myself entirely, like in a creative setting. Like I think like for me, I started off on my own and then it developed into a band. And I think like through being in the band, I kind of like got to engage with a lot more musicians and bands and everybody else. And in some way, this kind of made me feel like I wasn't adequate enough.
Okay.
I started to compare myself to other people, and it started to just make me feel like I'm not, like I could do better. And of course I can always do better, but it put a limit on my actual creativity.
GK, you're from Watford. Loads of culture in Watford.
Yeah.
There isn't loads of culture in Watford.
Grotty Watty.
Your kind of musical, like your musical kind of ground zero was Leeds in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously growing up in Watford, I don't want to say that there wasn't any music scene there, because there definitely was. I mean, I was in my first band in Watford. We were called a little old lady name called Irene. Really odd choice of name.
You opened up for Noah and the Whale, didn't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sounds like you could have done.
No, I mean that would have been better than we did. But no, we played a grand total of 2 different pubs repeatedly in Watford.
Did you play the one pub that's got plastic windows because people kept on getting chucked through it on fights?
Wait, what pub's that?
I think it's the Champion.
Oh no, we never played there. No, we played a bar called the Horns.
Yeah.
And we played a bar that's no longer there, that's now a chain, but it was called the Flag at the time. And you know, there was a little sort of scene in Watford, and they're, you know, part of my core memory. But my partner at the time lived in Leeds, so I was starting to come up to Leeds sort of in my late teenagehood, sort of 16, 17. And my first gig in Leeds was actually, I think, the 2015 Enemy tour.
Old school.
Which I believe was Soft Play, Palmer Violets, Fat White Family, and The Witches, I think.
That's a strong one.
And I got knocked out during Soft Play set. I got knocked out by some guy size 12 Doc Martin. So that was my first experience of a gig in Leeds. But
and
you
then
know,
you moved.
Still
and
here.
then I moved. No, I mean, to be honest, like coming up to Leeds, like so often, you know, I was like really developing a love for it, coming to gigs here more and more often. I saw Wolf Alice here as well. It was one of my second ever gigs at the O2 Academy. And, you know, I was seeing bigger gigs here. It wasn't until I moved up here for uni that I started to go to smaller gigs. And then my first Live at Leeds experience was 2017. And the very first band that I saw was Fling. And
Don't know them.
no, they're great. I don't think they're active anymore, but they did a great album, and they were quite early on at that point. But it was just, I remember watching them, and I can't remember what venue it was, but I remember being like, oh God, like I really want to do this. You know, my band in Watford had perished, obviously, because, you know, it was never going to happen given everyone went off in their separate ways. But I was really desperate to have that sort of connection again with a dynamic and a musical dynamic, because it's a very particular type of connection.
Were you chatting to people? Were you kind of making friends?
Yeah, so obviously I came here for uni, and like I was trial and error, like loads of different bands and stuff like that, and nothing was sort of sticking. And I sort of got really into Riot Girl, and you know, it really come into my angsty time.
Well, the angst, but also the DIY nature of it, and the way that you could record in a bedroom.
Yeah, literally. And I loved that sense of community that Riot Girl had, and everything that it sort of brought to the table. And it wasn't even just about the music, it was everything. It was the zine culture, the photography, the art, everything like that. Just really, I was so invested into it.
And that's all people, like that's the community, right?
Yeah, which I found very powerful. And then obviously I met the girls in Venus and we started gigging, and it was like immersing yourself into that culture of community and things like that, and how everyone just supported each other, and it was all just, I don't know, we were really keen to make those bonds in the local scene, and that was something I couldn't find in Watford as much on the scale that it was found here. I think particularly when you're at uni as well, and there's loads of different bands popping up all over the place, and it's really exciting to see everyone in their infancy sort of just, throwing shit at the wall and just seeing what happens, and...
You're artists.
Yeah, and that's essentially what we did. So I think, like coming to Leeds and building that bigger community was, and finding a place within that was, I don't know, just really invigorating and I think really important to all of us.
I think there's that almost tendency, and I fall into the trap of it sometimes, even like doing this show, thinking of it as almost like a project and not necessarily like a career. But whether you're a musician or you're a painter, there always seems to be this point that, they're two separate things. There's regular work and then there's art. And like, no, can't they just both be one? Or can't art actually just be that, and then paid work is paid work to help you to fund your art?
I think the trouble is, if you're in a band, like obviously whatever fee you're getting for X amount of work, it's not necessarily big enough for you to all take a cut from in your early days. So
going back into
it's going back into the pot to then buy some merch or pay for some travel to a London gig that you can't afford to get to or something.
And that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And of course you want to, and this is one of the big problems, is that you want to do it, right? So you want to spend money on it, but you got to be careful that you don't spend more money than you can make back.
Absolutely, but I think when you discover such a passion and an enjoyment in something, it's like, it was interesting what you were saying, like you just did it and you weren't thinking about it. It's very much just that you're just like, I'm just going to do it because I love it, and you do just start building your life around it, doing things that will accommodate it, even if it is sometimes, as you said, a bit silly because you're like, what am I doing? But it's not silly because it's what you love and it's what's important to you,
And it's a slow trail.
Yeah.
Someone once said it's the breadcrumb trail.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think other people have nice things like holidays and like,
Yeah, we don't do that.
Nice stuff. And you just have a new guitar maybe, or get to go and do a gig. When we became successful, suddenly it was like, I had to be good at interviews, be a model, write stuff for magazine. Like there's lots and lots of things that I'd never done before. Suddenly it's like, can you do this thing? It's like, no, but I'll try. And then I think even more so nowadays with artists, they have to do it from scratch. They have to be like editing videos, being a social media expert, doing everything, which is very hard. I do some sort of work with new artists and stuff. So I tell them to do it. And I say, oh yeah, reels are better and all that stuff. But I don't actually do it for our band. Cause
Who does it?
there is someone that does it, some of it, but we just generally don't do it. We're quite bad at social media. It could be better. I think
You hire someone to do it.
I think it would improve our profile massively. But basically, we're just from a generation where we can't be bothered. Like, I really want to be. Like, I'll go to rehearsal and I'll be like, I'm going to take a picture of us rehearsing so I can post it. And then I'll forget.
But if you're having someone do it for you, you obviously have to pay them. People are getting paid for no matter what. People need to get paid.
That's good, though. People getting paid is good.
It is. It's the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's good.
So for new bands, how do new bands become sustainable at a mid-level?
Give me that question.
Maybe
that's a really, really hard question, I think. I think it's about, what is a mid-level? I think when you get to a mid-level, you're probably kind of all right. I think it's a bit taking the plunge, like what you were saying. So I think with Kaisers, there was a point, and I look back again. So I was working in a venue, running a venue with my friend, and I think what you said earlier is quite interesting about, I think you sort of you pinpoint down. So like, I got to a point where my job was basically hanging around with musicians, talking to musicians, making a scene, doing all that stuff all day, every day, which is great. But there was this point, so we weirdly went to Russia as our first ever gig outside of the UK. Like someone just emailed us, do you want to come to Russia for a festival? And really out of character, we were like, yeah, fine. So we just turned up with our guitars, and it was fine. Did a human pyramid in Red Square for Enemy. That was
wild.
Good fun. Anyway, so we did that, but whilst I was on that trip, we'd got loads and loads of. We weren't signed, not like we were we'd released some music ourselves, and we were doing quite a lot of touring. And during that trip, we got offered a load more touring, a load of other stuff, and basically rang my boss while I was away and was like, "Oh, he's my friend actually." We were kind of like joint bosses, and the other person so it's 3 people in charge of this venue: me, Peanut, and this other guy. And I rang him up and was like, "Me and Peanut aren't coming back to work." And he was like, "Oh, okay, thanks, bye." But he was very understanding, actually.
Is that a mixture of feelings? I bet it's a great feeling, but maybe...
Well, but we didn't have any money. I don't understand how we did it. We just couldn't go to work because we didn't have enough time to go to work and do Kaisers. We had to just be like, this now has to work.
But then, okay, so like, was then it a case of like, were you basically just in survival mode as a band, basically going from gig to gig, check to check, kind of?
Yeah, I was lucky because my girlfriend had an okay job. At the time, we thought it was an amazing job, but looking back, like she was earning an okay amount of money, enough to like pay the rent and stuff. So she was ace, but not everyone was in such a good position. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we just sort of had to take that plunge at some point. We borrowed a little bit of money as well to do one particular tour, because we were just like, well, we have to do it because it was like such an amazing opportunity that could be, and what turned out to be the difference really between. We got signed off the back of that tour and stuff like that. So that was it was a great gamble, and we were kind of like, if it doesn't work, we'll just have to pay that money back somehow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I suppose there is something that when you're doing something that you've made, then so what, you have to pay that money back, and if you have to pay it through Klarna, £10 a month for the next 5 years, that's all right as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like it was all happening. Like we were at this point where it was kind of weird. Like, and I think sort of a bit similar to what I said about New Ice, where you just got to get everything going. So we were getting played on MTV and getting played on Radio 1 and getting Enemy and doing loads of great gigs, and audiences come and see us. We just weren't signed. Like no one would sign us, despite all that stuff. It was really weird.
I don't know if this is a stupid question. Do you get paid if your music videos aired? Do you get royalties in the same way you'd get royalties on the radio?
Yes. I don't know if we were collecting them though.
Right.
I don't know if we were that clever.
So that's a different story. And this is a reason why all artists needs to be.
No, we were signed up for. We had a publishing deal, so we were signed for PRS. So yeah, we were getting paid. We got a publishing deal on our previous band, so yeah, that was good. And that saved us as well. That was another thing that saved us, is we actually had that deal, so that got us a little bit of money.
And it might take over like 6 months to get those royalty checks still. Is that right?
Yeah, well, another thing about Parva was we signed a deal for Parva. It's a boring story, but I'll tell it anyway. Signed a deal for Parva, which was very small. And I remember we got $5,000 each from the record deal. But then at the end of it, we all got a tax bill for like 3 or 4, like it was like almost all that money we somehow seemed to owe in tax. Like some sort of major error in accounting. So yeah, at the end of Parva, we got dropped, and then we got a big tax bill.
Yeah, no, it's double blow that.
Not a good
It's not
day.
boring, that's just sad.
I've worked for BBC Introducing for nearly 10 years, and I think, I guess one thing I've learned is not everyone's going to be happy about like what you're playing and what you're doing. Like people moan all the time about, maybe we're not doing enough for like certain areas of West Yorkshire, because we cover like West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire locally, or maybe we're not, playing enough of a particular genre. But I think I try to kind of believe that we're doing the right thing. I think we try and be as supportive and reflective as we possibly can be on our BBC Introducing shows of everything. And I think that's quite an amazing thing. Like I think about it a lot actually, especially now since I've been doing the Introducing mixtape on 6. Like that's great because I can kind of do, I can pretty much do what I want with it, but it's just like an hour show. It's on at 4 a.m. on 6. So
you listen back to it and it's
Yeah.
It's on the BBC channels.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you pick those tracks. And will you sometimes play songs that, from an artist who doesn't have a label, doesn't have a plugger? And you would have just found them however you found them.
Yeah, so I mean, I know the odd plugger and stuff, and I'll listen to them for like when I'm covering like Chris Hawkins or Steve Lamacq or Hugh Stevens. Like, I'll go through, some emails that I've got from pluggers just because it's an opportunity for me to play an artist that maybe isn't uploading, or maybe an artist from like America or whatever that I've been liking and stuff. But generally, week to week, I don't really speak to pluggers because that kind of defeats the whole point of introducing.
Right.
You can upload for free. It's a service, with pretty much, there's very little barrier to introducing. So yeah, me and my team locally I just don't respond to pluggers' emails, which probably pisses off a lot of pluggers. But if you've got a good radio plugger, they'll tell you that that's your thing. You do the introducing side of it. That's not for us to do. So yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that it exists. It's amazing that you could be a band from a regional part of the UK or a regional part of Yorkshire, send it into your email, which is available, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
And you play it, and that could be a huge part. And like you said, Simon, it's not, one play might not change a band's career by itself, but it's part of the picture.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a confidence boost, isn't it? Like, I've never been an artist. I've never played an instrument. I can barely DJ.
You're a selector.
Yeah, very much that. No mixing. But I think if I was an artist and I was making music, especially maybe if I was a solo artist, I'd want to know if it was any good. And I feel like BBC Introducing is that first opportunity to know if what you're doing is good or not. I mean, I don't know if that's right.
No, I do, definitely. It's like usually if you're starting out, getting BBC intro is like the first sort of big core memory you can have, like in the early days, definitely.
Yeah. You get an email back, don't you, saying your track's being listened to.
Yeah.
Even that in itself, I imagine, is like, get on.
Well, it's just. I feel like when I moved back to the UK in 2020, I was ready to kind of give up on music and just find a job in the arts or music. Expecting a child, I was like, do you know what I mean? I was like, it's fine. I've done all the touring. I've done this. DIY, whatever, but I've done it. But then I kind of started making songs again, and people were like, these are really good. And I had the aspiration of okay, one day I'll get played on the radio. And I didn't know that the barrier was so, it's there. Do you know what I mean? As in that I can literally just upload it. And it's as you said, it is definitely a huge boost of confidence. It's it makes me want to carry on, and it makes me believe that I can do something at home that is radio worthy, and it's a huge boost in confidence. And it's great. I don't know, to have the aspiration of one day being played on the radio, and then last week, a couple of weeks ago, picking it as track of the week. I'm do you know what I mean? It's a huge okay, you're doing something right, and it's going. But I don't expect that, as you said, to change everything. I feel like before my mentality was, I just need to get played on the radio, man. Or I just need to get featured in NME. And it's a big learning curve to understand that isn't the case anymore. No. But that's also fine, because me growing and through these relationships, and I would take 10 people who are really committed to supporting me over 1,000 likes of people just passing by and not. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And if those 10 people spend £10-15 coming to see you,
that's already more than I've made from streaming.
I think the best thing about BBC Introducing is you just don't know what you can get from it. Obviously Introducing, you can upload to your local area, and then if we like it, we can forward it on to obviously I do the Six Music Show now, but there's Radio 1 and One Extra and Asian Network, and there's just so many crazy possibilities within Introducing. And obviously there's the festivals and stuff, but I remember speaking to someone, Phoebe, who presents the Introducing in Scotland show, and she'd been supporting this like DJ or something in Scotland for a while. And I think One Extra like went to Scotland as part of a touchdown tour or something. And then that producer, because of that kind of connection and that support of introducing, got asked to make all these beats for like a big thing that One Extra were doing. Yeah. And it's just like, you kind of just don't really know. There's so many open opportunities, and the BBC, it's probably the only time that the BBC are good at talking to each other is with BBC introducing, because there is that kind of like funnel that exists. And yeah, I think it's an amazing, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a really great thing for anyone to take advantage of. Like Yard Act and English Teacher locally are huge success stories from introducing. Very aware that we're not the reason that English Teacher won a Mercury. There are various other things that have supported them, but
it could be the reason that their manager found out about them. Right?
Well, exactly. And like, we've supported them on their journey. I remember seeing English Teacher. They played Leeds Festival on like the Thursday night, and it was like something crazy, like their 5th or 6th ever show, because they'd kind of got big or people started to pay attention to them during lockdown. And like, I went to see them, and it was the first time that they'd played like a kind of a major festival stage. Had an interview with them afterwards, and they were really kind of like overwhelmed and stressed. And I think part of the job with introducing is to kind of reassure artists and make sure that kind of what they're doing is the right thing, and just having someone outside of your bubble to support you and validate you, I think.
Definitely.
I think it's just an advert for introducing now, but I think it's nice that in a world where, like I said before, there's not like I thought like when we were doing it, there's a bit of a ladder. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do that, and you kind of build. In a world where it feels like that doesn't exist anymore, it's a bit more like scattergun, and like you're sort of praying for like, I don't know, like a viral TikTok or whatever. Yeah. Introducing feels a bit more like, like you say, it's free, so you don't have to start getting pluggers and stuff involved, and you can get played, get listened, get played, get track of the week, maybe get played on national. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it feels more like something you can go, what's the next like aim on this ladder?
It's good to remember that these are people. They're people getting these emails. They're not this, it's very easy to think of this as kind of like opaque box that, you need to find the golden key to. It is people. And, I think it's probably worth saying that anyone listening to this who's playing in a band or wants to work on radio or wants to work in management, whatever, that it's well worth just putting your hand out in front of you and saying, hi, my name's da-da-da. Nice to meet you. Do you work in that company? Because I've seen you around. That kind of thing. Those kind of friendly introductions are a huge part of it.
Yeah. I mean, most of the music industry is just like going for coffee or a pint, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's a thing which I've learned from going to Great Escape for the last few years is it's interesting, I thought, because everyone's not from Leeds originally here. Yeah. Which is interesting and good, I think. Because, my thing is we're a bit stuck in Leeds sometimes, and go to Great Escape, or you go down to London for gigs and stuff, or when you go do like radio, I guess. And everyone's there, and everyone's just chatting to each other every day and making friends and making networks and stuff. And we're sort of like, I do think people, you miss out a bit on that if you're not engaging with that. Especially, I think less artists, but more if you're doing other stuff like management or whatever.
I think it can be awkward. You can feel like very awkward in a room. I get that now all the time. And
Live at Leeds is quite good actually, because I see people come to us then. So I've got a few people I'm going to meet today. It's good because you're sort of welcoming them in Leeds and going like, this is what we've got to offer, And so,
like, there's something that exists outside of the south, right? And it's like something outside of London.
They get a field trip to the rough north.
The lineup today is looking stellar. I think we're running out of time here a little bit. You've got a gig to go to, Simon. Emily, you're doing a stage down the road.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this chat, and thank you for coming. All of you who are making the coffee trip out this morning. Thank you to West Yorkshire Music Network for telling us about what you're doing. I think just to end with, I'm a big fan of the word gaff and like fucking up in the workplace. And I think if you've worked at a coffee shop, you've maybe spilt some food down some people or given someone the wrong change. The one that always comes to my mind is doing someone's driveway when I was doing some labouring work. Said I knew how to use this massive tool, this machinery. Didn't, nearly took my hand off. But got the driveway done, got paid for it, and then got the hell out of there. But these kinds of side hustles where you're just like, yes, I know how to do that. I feel like that's something that a lot of people have done. Have you got any memories of side jobs or hustles where you've had a pretty awkward day that you just want to get to the end of?
I've got a pretty bad DJing story. It was like my first DJing story. God, I hate this one. So I used to try and get out of doing bar work so much. I was like, I should do something that kind of complements doing radio. So I was like, I'll just start DJing. And I got asked to DJ Porto, which is where we've got our introducing stage today. And yeah, they asked me to DJ. I think it was like a Friday night or something. And it was my first time DJing. I was really nervous. I was like, I'll have like a pint or something before. And then I got to a Porto. It was really, really busy. And one of the managers came over and gave me a bottle of Jaeger and was like, just, have this here. He put like a speed pourer in the top and was like, if anyone comes over and asks for a request, just give them a shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
To diffuse the situation.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, fine. And then it got so busy that I couldn't get anyone's attention for a drink. So I just kept drinking this Jaeger because I was like, I really need a drink. I'm having a great time. And what a Porto do when it's quite mean, really. But if they don't like a song, they'll chuck a lime at you. So I was really stressed by that anyway. So I was obviously drinking this Jaeger. I was quite drunk. It was really busy. I thought it was going amazing. And then all of a sudden I got these limes chucked at me. And I was like, what? Why? Everyone's fucking dancing to Destiny's Child. What are you on about? And the manager came over and was like, yeah, Emily, everyone loves the song, but you've played it 3 times in a row. And I just like blacked out whilst DJing. So I was very embarrassed, somehow managed to like sober up. Went to stay at my friend's house because I was quite embarrassed by the whole situation, and then had to go to work the next day and then go back to a Porto to get paid. But then they offered me a residency after that.
There you go. Couldn't have gone too badly.
Yeah, but it's a pretty embarrassing one, that one.
They stay with you.
Yeah.
You feel the rouge face when you feel it. How about you, Simon?
Traffic of gaffes. I've had really bad jobs. So I worked in a hospital as well, but as a porter, so like moving sick people. And then one time I got asked to move a dead body, basically. But I was only there for a couple of days and I had no training. So then someone like kind of quite swiftly stopped me having to do that. So that was a bad job. They're all to do with dead people, actually. And then my worst job is I worked for civil service for a little bit, for the flexi time, as I mentioned earlier. When I started, I was doing like, I don't know what it's called now, but like, disability living allowance or whatever, that stuff. So giving money to people to help them, which is nice. And then I got a promotion, which is great, but it was to this other department. And what you did was, if someone died, you got their probate or whatever, and like the people who were claiming benefits. Yeah. And then you worked out if they'd been getting their benefits properly. And if they hadn't, then you rang the relatives and were like, grandma was the benefits cheat. You owe us $5,000.
And it was usually that way, not that they were owed more.
No, never owed more, never. That didn't happen.
Oh my Lord. And so your job was to tell the family, ring them up, and tell them how much they owe.
Yeah. Bad job, that. But the silver lining was that if they were nice, you sent them a letter, and like we weren't really allowed to chase it. So if they ignored the letters, after like 3 letters, you had to just let it go. Yeah. So if they were nice, or you felt like it was particularly unjust case, you could kind of go like, just don't.
Cheers for listening to this episode of 101 Part-Time Jobs. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Live at Leeds for having us. And if you want to hear more, make sure you click subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week. And next week, we have Murph from the Wombats and Imogen and the Knife. So see you then.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
You know, the average hospital visit can cost you around $12,000. So, do you have that kind of extra money lying around if you get sick? Me either. That's why health insurance is so important. Today, you can get health insurance plans for a couple of dollars a day and have health, vision, and dental insurance for you or your whole family. If you're moving or changed or lost your job, we have health insurance options perfect for you. What if you need health insurance for only a few months? We have short-term insurance options ready for you right now with fast approvals and cheap rates. Whatever kind of health insurance you need, we have it. One quick phone call and we'll find you the best health insurance options for you and your family for free. Call this number, 800-352-7084. 800-352-7084. 800-352-7084. For your free health insurance quote, call 800-352-7084. Paid for by healthinsurance100.com. Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Even if you've tried before and were unsuccessful in getting rid of your timeshare, call today and see if we can help. We offer a complete 100% unconditional client satisfaction guarantee. Make this completely free call and learn how we can help you legally put an end to your timeshare nightmare once and for all. You have nothing to lose, so call right now to qualify and receive a free consultation. 800-951-6756. 800-951-6756. That's 800-951-6756. Paid for by Airtime Media.